It dawned on me the other day that I haven't done a comparison talking about the BYD Dolphin and the BYD Seagull, and everybody probably knows that I love the BYD Seagull. So they're two fairly similar cars, but one of them is half the price of the other, which is crazy, isn't it? So let's try to figure out why. Let's go over some of the BYD Seagull specs and prices. So in China, the BYD Seagull is priced from €10,500, and then for the highest of the three specs, it goes up to €13,000 when you convert the Chinese price to euro. A lot of people have been saying I should start using the euro currency more because it's a lot more easy to reference from the UK or America, things like that. So I will use the euro a lot more. I think it's a good idea. The largest two versions of the BYD Seagull out of the three that you can get have battery cooling, so you should only really consider those ones, I think, if you want to have a good chance of having a battery that will last many years rather than just a handful, like 5 or 10 years. And it's also proper battery cooling, so it's not just a fan that blows and wafts hot air over the battery cells. The BYD Dolphin is priced currently, right now, because you can buy the Dolphin, not the Seagull, in Europe. It's priced from €25,000 up for the cheapest, and then it goes up to €30,000 for the most expensive one. So you can see that there is a very big difference in price. It's almost double in the Seagull and the Dolphin. So what on earth is causing that? Why have I not mentioned this before? Why does nobody seem to have brought this to everyone's attention? We'll get into this in a minute. So for those of you that are new to the channel, I'm Ben Alexander and I make EV news videos every single day. So welcome to the channel. I often talk about the more cheaper cars on the spectrum rather than only the show cars, the hero cars, the $100,000 super fast cars. I try to just talk about all the cheaper ones and then also the other stuff. But I sort of really like the cheaper end of the market. I think that's where the party's at, as I've said before. I do like to talk about anything EV related though, not just cars really. So please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and if you're watching this, because you may like my other videos. So I guess a good starting point would be to just talk a little bit about the cheapest versions of the Dolphin and the Seagull. So the power of the Dolphin, the cheapest one comes with 94 horsepower, and that has a 44 kilowatt hour battery pack. The cheapest BYD Seagull comes with a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, but it doesn't have battery cooling on it at all on the cheapest one, and it has 74 horsepower. So that's a big difference. The weight of the BYD Seagull is 1,160 to 1,240 kilograms, depending on which one you get. The weight of the Dolphin is 1,508 or 1,650, and in between there, depending on how you set it up. So the BYD Seagull is 3.8 meters long, and the Dolphin is 4.3 meters long. So it's about this much difference in length. And the Honda Jazz, if you know what the Honda Jazz is, or in America you call it the Honda Fit, and pretty much I think most places in the world it's the Honda Jazz. That is basically the same sort of size as the Seagull and the Dolphin, the Honda Jazz, the Honda Fit. This is one of the most commonly sold cars too, the Honda Jazz. The Honda Jazz weighs just under 1,100 kilos full of petrol and is 3.95 meters long. So basically, when you consider the height and the length of a Honda Jazz, it's basically a little bit either side of the Seagull and the Dolphin. So I like to sort of consider that the BYD Seagull is basically a cheap electric version of a Honda Jazz, because it kind of looks like one a little bit too. Contrary to what some people say in the comments, the BYD Seagull is not a small, crappy, impractical car by any means. It is a modern, nice car by a good company that is very well made. So the difference in price, I think, will come almost entirely down to the fact that there's different technology on both of them. That's what I think. So the BYD Seagull doesn't have lane assist, for example, which is needed for a 5-star Euro NCAP rating these days, or battery cooling on the cheap version. And the battery is a bit smaller regardless. So I think that is largely a part of why it's a lot cheaper. The motor and the controller to power the motor will all be smaller and cheaper and less complex compared to all the ones found in the Dolphin, basically. So maybe the Dolphin feels more comfy and maybe a little bit more, I'm going to go with posh or luxurious when you're in it, because it really does feel like a swanky car. But the difference in price between the most expensive Seagull and the cheapest Dolphin is 12,000 euros, which is obviously not very correct, I suppose, because the price for the Seagull is only converted from China, so it would be more expensive in Europe, I imagine, because of the cost of shipping and a couple of bits of tax or something like that. So let's imagine that the real world difference in price could be in the order of 10,000 euro difference between the two. So I think the Dolphin is more swanky and definitely finessed as a product goes, but the BYD Seagull is clearly a really, really great car, and it's priced very well. There are a lot of people in Europe right now that would pay 13,000 euros cash for a Seagull immediately. I would be one of those people. But when you start talking about 20 or 30,000 euros, like for the Dolphin, that's a much bigger decision to make, I think. The difference in price really goes up when you order the high-end BYD Dolphin, because then it has 201 horsepower, a considerably larger battery pack, and then there'll be much more serious, more tech wizardry in the car for things like hefty motors. The motors themselves will be bigger, but also maybe the mounts for the motors might be a little bit bigger because it's twice the power, or perhaps the controller for the motor that controls the motor, that will almost certainly be quite a bit bigger to handle the extra power. So when the power goes up from 94 horsepower to 201, then there will be a fair bit more going on in there. So at least 80, 100, 150 kilos in weight. If it was my money, I would say 110% I'd buy the Seagull all day long. I wouldn't question that. And every now and then, when I need to drive a long way, and my range is a bit shorter, then I would be happy to wait a bit more at the charger, and just remember that I've got an extra 10 or 12,000 euros in my bank. The Seagull generally seems to be almost the same sort of car as the Dolphin when you look at it, and you watch the videos on YouTube, for example, but with less tech, and it's less refined, clearly. It obviously is built with being a cheap car in mind. Probably won't be as comfortable to drive as a Dolphin. The quality in certain places is likely to be a little bit cheaper as well. So, for example, there may not be as good a paint quality all around as the Dolphin does have. The tyres and brakes are a bit smaller and cheaper, things like that. The parts in the BYD Seagull may not as well be as well cast or built to last the test of time, or maybe just not as well as the BYD Dolphin. But I can say for sure that the BYD brand, the company, they do make brilliant cars. They really, really do. They're great at making them drive fantastic, and the fit and finish is amazing. Definitely on par with Volkswagen or Audi, apart from the lack of clear coat under the bonnet, which I've mentioned twice before this video. So that's annoying. It's a very annoying thing that they do, because they've obviously prepped all the metal work. They've painted the whole car. They've primed them, painted them with the colour, and then they've put the clear coat everywhere apart from the back of the bonnet. Why on earth do they do that? That does bug me a little bit. One or two people every now and then say that they think it could be clear coat that doesn't have shine to it. You'd have to ask. And I used to paint cars for a couple of years when I was younger for a dealership. To do that, they would be risking quite a lot of contamination around the edge of the panel, so paint might waft around, because there is an additive in clear coat which makes normal shiny paint, clear coat, become matte. There's literally just an additive you put in it. There's no reason to do that. It can't possibly be a design element. Let's make the back of the bonnet not shiny because we don't like shiny bonnets. They're definitely just cheaping out. You can see that they sort of leave the bonnet up a bit. They go around the car, spray everything like this, and I'm sure there's a reason to do it, but it's obviously not preferred when you could have a nice clear coated bonnet, and it gives that extra bit of rust protection at the back of the bonnet, which I think is a big concern with some Chinese brands, because there's a bit of uncertainty whether BYD even galvanize all of the car really thoroughly, such as Toyota do. So I'm keen to know, if you're in Europe, which one would you buy, and would you be fine to drive the Seagull? Imagine the high-end Seagull for most of your trips. How do you think that that would go for you? For example, if you drove from Norway to France and you got the ferry from Kristiansand to Hirtshals, or you drove around and went over the big bridge, how would that go for you? Do you think you'd be fine with that? Thank you very much for watching, and remember to use the comment section to voice your opinion. That's literally what it's there for, and loads of people read the comments, and I personally sit down every day and read all the comments. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.